We're ready. All right, call the Osseo City Council regular meeting to order for Monday, July 28th at 7 p.m. Roll call. Looks like we have all members with us this evening. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next, look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Schultz to approve tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cook. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, consent agenda. Any questions on that? If not, we'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Cook to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, next, matters from the floor. Anyone wishing to speak, please should fill out one of these yellow cards that are in the back. Give them to one of the staff members, and we'll call up you by name. So, do we have any matters from the floor this evening? Third time, matters from the floor. All right. No matters from the floor. Moving on, 7, special business. Approve special event permit for Pathways Seventh-day Adventist Church at Site Park.
Mayor, council, give me 1 second here. My computer had shut down, so I apologize. Apologize here. Give me. Okay. So it looks the Seventh-day Adventist is Family Fun Day. This is for the community. It'll be August 17th, 2025. Starts at 7 a.m. and goes until 10 p.m. at 256 6th Avenue Southeast. So they'd like to use Site Park to do this special event. So it looks like there's some music and some pictures. They'll have bottled water. And the staff is all signed off, so we're going to ask for approval of the special event permit.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Just a quick question here. I don't think this requires any financial resources on our part to approve this. Is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, I do see the police services, garbage recycle bins, special signage, which I think is probably just that street closure signage.
Yep.
Police services, is that just to, I don't know what that request was part of?
Yeah, we're not requiring them to have police.
Is it a rowdy
services.
bunch? We need to have cops there or what?
Yeah, no, I assume what they're talking about is probably having us a part of that instead of actually using our services.
And I think that we have a porta potty there already. We don't have a hand washing sink there, so if they need that, they have to provide that on their own. They're aware of that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Works for me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
just checking with staff, as far as volume, speaker amplification, they're aware of like city ordinances and whatnot.
Yep.
Okay, just checking it off. Thanks.
Well, with that, would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a special event permit on 8/17/25.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Schultz to approve the special event permit. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Number 8, public hearings. No public hearings in front of us this evening. Number 9, old business. 9A, approve proposed 2025 utility rates. Welcome, Ms. Kurtz.
Hello. Good evening, Rebecca Kurtz from Ellers. We are here again to talk about utility rates, and I understand there were some follow-up questions after the work session or meeting at the end of June, and so hopefully I can get all of those answered. I do have a presentation. I'm going to just walk through it quickly because you will see there are some repeats, reminders, but just kind of, again, set the stage for where we're at. But again, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions, too. So again, utility funds are enterprise funds, so the goal is to have them operate as a business, so the expenses are less than the revenue coming in, and then also having a fund balance. The recommended fund balance that Ellers and government finance officers uses for enterprise funds is 6 months of operating expenses, a year, the next year's debt service in full, and then funding for any capital projects that you anticipate paying cash for. And so as we look at the assumptions that got us to the rates that we are recommending at this point, we have for sewer used the 9% increase for 26. That is from Met Council. We have assumed that all of your capital projects would be paid with cash with the exception of painting of the historic water tower. We have assumed that that would possibly need to be bonded for. Recognize that there are annual expense increases, and then after some discussions with the Budget and Finance Committee, the target reserves are using 3 months of operating versus 6 months, and that was the thought process with that is that you do collect quarterly with your bills. My understanding, one of the questions from the last meeting was just kind of what is outstanding for utility debt. There are 5 bonds outstanding. 3 of them will mature in 2032 or 2033, and then there are a couple of them that go a little bit longer toward 2040 or so. And you'll see as we go through the rates when some of that debt drops off as we look at the fund balances. So when we get to the recommendations that we are presenting for this, for the sewer, we are recommending moving into or currently you have that base fee of $62.88 per quarter. That does allow for the usage of 15,000 gallons. Some of you who have been on the council for a while may remember that there had been a discussion on winter quarter averaging, and so that was reinstated for this year. So for that base of usage, we are using that winter quarter to determine what the proper usage is for that.
Does the council understand that? Why that's, okay.
For the record, it never actually really went away. It was a error in working the software. So the policy never changed from winter quarter average when the software was implemented, and people responsible for doing that just missed a button, which caused all kinds of chaos.
Thank you for that clarification. So as we look at the proposed rates for sewer for 2025, again, we are factoring in what the MCS charge for 2025 per Met Council. We are recommending a base fee of $68.23 per quarter. That is a $5.35 increase over the 24 rate, but that 68.23 would remain for the entire year. With that, then we are recommending about 7% increase in future years after we get through 2026. The reason for that is you can see here on this chart, the orange is where the recommended target fund balance is, and then the blue is where it has been or is anticipated to be. With that proposed 7% increase, you will see that it will take some time, but it will get to that point where the cash balance and the target are going to be at the level that would be considered a healthy fund balance. With that, then again, we are proposing 7% increases in annual increases in the foreseeable future for the sewer fund. We do believe that could drop off when we look toward the 2030, 2031, when some of that debt starts to fall off, then that will give a little relief for where rates need to be because you will not be paying that debt service. As we look at the water meters or water rates, again, we are looking at a single-family customer. The proposed rate for 25-26 is $24.31 for a single-family user for the meter charge. You may recall that that meter charge is going to vary depending on the size of the meter, and so for a single-family home, again, we are proposing the $24.31. That charge does go up based on the size of meter. So, like for a large commercial user, it would be higher per the chart. The other piece of the water charges, though, is also based on usage. And again, some of you who've been on the council for a few years may recall that several years ago we went through a process and evaluated the tiers, looked at kind of where that might break down with some natural breaks with water usage, had a fair amount of discussion about single or elderly people that don't use a whole lot of water, and trying to make sure that we can keep it as affordable as possible for some of those types of users. But then also had discussions about conservation rates. So the people that are watering their lawns every day and using huge volumes of water pay a little bit more based on their usage. And so you can see that for like tier 1, the people that are using 0 to 10,000 gallons quarterly, we are proposing about a 16-cent increase. That goes up based on the usage. And again, part of that is with that idea of conservation rates, yes.
Right. So just to elaborate a little bit, I mean, the legislature passed some guidelines that basically force us to address, what's the word I'm looking for, water conservation. And this is like legit the only way that we can actually figure out how to actually do that, which is basically penalize people based on the amount of water that they use. And that's pretty much exactly what every municipality.
I was going to say, I
around
want
there,
to
so-
clarify, though, that
Yep.
that is, again, from the way the legislature outlined with the conservation. Osseo is not alone in
No, it's
in
a very
having this
commonplace
tiered
thing.
structure.
I just only wanted to throw some context in there for our newer council members that would just be like, well, why do I have to pay base rate more if I'm, and why is everything more expensive if I use 20,000 gallons of water? That would be why. So if you got a pool, and you don't have an old well, that's the cost of doing business. So sorry for interrupting.
No, please, feel free. And again, then, a lot of this is driven, these increases are driven by the financial health of the water fund. And so you can see that fund balance had been fairly high, has been declining over time. That is really related to 3 main items, including taking out the lease revenue from the antenna leases. There have been some higher capital costs or projects in the water fund. And then as we look forward and propose that, well, it is a 6% increase in the short term, but looking to the future, the model is proposing a 15% increase in water rates. That is really driven by the unknowns with the contract that is coming up for your purchase of water from Maple Grove. I will say that with that, I strongly, as this moves forward, this is going to be something that, looking beyond the next year or two, we will want to look at again, because how those negotiations and where that contract lands will possibly dramatically change what we are modeling in future years for water costs. And again, if you look at those increases, starting in '27, we've used 15%. I hope that is not accurate, but we'll have to really just review that when the time comes.
Can I ask a question? I noticed it both in the sewer fund and the water fund. I'm just curious on what is the explanation or rationale behind the high capital numbers, I guess, in particular, like in 2027. So you've got in the sewer fund, it looks like your capital numbers go from 26,000 in 24 to 43,000 in 25, 44,000 in 26, and then also in 27 it's 116,000. And same thing down here. When I look at the water fund, your capital costs are 46,000, then it goes up to 154,000, then it goes down to 95,000, then it goes up to 169,000. Can you just help me wrap my brain around what's causing the significant fluctuation in those numbers and not just standard inflationary growth? If
Yep.
that makes sense.
So those capital costs have been based on projects, and part of it, as you look back, even before 2024, some of those numbers were a little bit lower because at that point in time when the city was doing its street projects, a lot of times it was also issuing debt for the utility piece. So that cost would be amortized over time. And then a couple years ago, there was a decision, a policy change by the council that was, to the extent possible, if cash could be used, tried to limit the amount of debt that is used. So now, as we move forward, for the most part, with those capital projects, based on the CIP, we are using cash instead of issuing debt, which means that annual amount is going to be higher because it'll have to be funds available. Pros and cons, but you won't pay
Are we anticipating
interest.
big capital projects in 2027? Is that why that year in particular is significantly higher than the other years? Or in 2030, where it's significantly high? It's interesting to me, like what planning is being done, what forecasting is being done that's looking at these years where the numbers are just so significantly higher than the other years.
Or placeholders in the CIP,
Okay.
Yeah.
future need. There's nothing specifically identified.
Well, and like the other part, like water fund, for example, and not having it side by side is difficult. The only thing I can suggest is probably has to do with some equipment that we have to purchase that year. So like when you buy a sewer jetter truck, that comes out of the sewer fund, and when we did all that lift station stuff, that 1.6 million came out of there. We also tried to, and by all means, drill down with Ehlers too, at a way different level too, if you want to. But we also tried to know that, for example, our water meters will probably last about 21 years. So, 15 years ago, there was I don't even know if there's any money in the water fund. The sewer fund was actually in the red. So we had to kind of build this up. So yeah, it does kind of stink, specifically to water. To Rebecca's thing, we have nobody to negotiate with. So we're just trying to make our best guess on what Maple Grove is going to do. With them, they're having to build a bunch of new facilities to accommodate their growth. Well, Maple Grove is going to try to shift as much of that onto us as they can. And respectfully, again, we don't really have a viable alternative to buying water from them. And so they're also looking at going the softening route as well. So there's a lot of these different things. We're just trying to hit it as close as we can. Additionally, that I don't know that did get stated, but we also pulled back a lot of because the original projections for huge cash balances, right? Mm-hmm. So we really kind of drilled down and said, okay, what does this actual cash balance need to look like? So you can't just go and use your general fund reserve to pay for a water main break. And as far as large water main projects, I can really only think of about maybe 3 in the last 15 years. Everything else is all old water main. So, it's a very difficult thing to do with water fund, especially simply because of the fact that, where we're at with water fund, it all depends on Maple Grove making some decisions, just like the sanitary sewer fund. It's a 9% annual growth that we don't have any control over. They just throw it at us. So, you try to do the best on the items that we can control, realizing that it's going to be a pass along cost because the people that, let's just call them at council out specifically on the sanitary sewer stuff. They don't care. You know, they're appointed people. Their supervisors are doing this stuff. They don't have to listen to us. And besides which, what are we going to do with all of our sewage? You know, so that just puts us in a really unenviable position.
Mr. Mayor? So I just have a question on the contingency for main break.
Okay.
And actually, the concern for me is that we may be underestimating, because I noticed that you put 400,000 flat all the way through 2034. So I'm just curious why, within the forecasting, we think it's going to cost the same to fix a water main break 10 years from now. You know where I'm going? I mean, I don't want to be leaving some future generation council going, oh, those guys 10 years ago, they're not the brightest bulbs on the, tree.
They always say that. It doesn't matter. Everybody's always smarter than the council before. It's just the way it is.
So I'm just trying to understand it, if you're seeking to
That's a
understand.
great question, very fair. That was part of the discussion that came out of some work with the Budget and Finance Committee. And again, I think finding that balance between knowing that a contingency is important because things happen, but also wanting to be thoughtful that no matter what we do, rates are going to go up. So that was, there was actually quite a bit of discussion with the Budget and Finance Committee on that. Go
So
ahead.
to your point, we realized, and you can disagree with me, I don't think you will, we realized that specifically on this 15%, we have no idea where that's going to be, and we know that it's going to change with Maple Grove, and the 2034 is not a realistic projection. It's just simply used as a placeholder for right now. We know that that's going to go up, but we don't know how much, and we want to try to be as, believe it or not, try to be as conservative as possible on this without leaving ourselves in that position. Because as soon as Maple Grove figures out what they're going to do in the next couple of years, we're having this all over again.
Yeah.
And then in a couple more years, we're having it all over again.
No, that helps. Thank you.
Ready to move to storm for a while? Maybe.
The storm continue.
And this was touched on, so we are proposing for the next increase, the storm fee of $50.06 per residential equivalent factor. And again, just for context, that REF, or residential equivalent, is kind of a standard of how stormwater is based. Stormwater fees are driven by the impervious surfaces on each lot. So a lot of times, and I'm really simplifying this, I'm sure Allison over here is like, oh my gosh.
Basically, it's water that runs down the storm drain. It doesn't go into your yard.
So they use like a single family home as kind of a base, instead of, the other way would be to look at every single property and do an analysis on every property. And we recognize that is expensive and complicated to manage. So for a single family home, the stormwater fee would be $50.06 per quarter. We are estimating future increases at 4% beginning in 2027. Again, you can see the health. This one is, a 4% increase is kind of looking with inflation, and as we would estimate expenses going up. You can see the financial health is trending fairly close with the cash balance to the target. You will notice that there have been some big drops, and in part, a reminder that, again, cash has been used for some projects. One of the big expenditures just recently is about $320,000, I believe, roughly, for the 2025 improvement project. And so that is if you wonder why there is a drop this year, that would be a big driving factor for that. But again, we're looking for it being fairly stable as we look to the future. we're projecting about a 4% annual increase there. The reason I will say your storm fee is higher maybe than some of your neighboring communities, but again, you've done a lot of projects, and then that is factoring in using cash moving forward. I know we looked at these numbers at the last discussion, but some sample quarterly bills for residential. If on the low user side, we are looking at an increase of about $9 quarterly. Again, if you moved and adopted these rates, they would be in place, and then that would be the quarterly, the amount of an increase per quarter, but remain that for the entire year until rates are evaluated again. As you go up to higher users at the very high end, if we are looking at people that are using, 37,000, over 37,000 gallons of water, which then increases the sewer, it would be a quarterly increase of almost $30. And then taking some examples of actual on the low end of your commercial, and then your highest industrial user, you can see what the increases would be there too. So I will say, give a little preface before I flip to my next slide. I recognize the importance of asking the questions about comparisons, and every community that we work with likes to know how they compare. I will say I don't like sharing this slide and having these discussions, though, because as we review it, remember these comparisons are at a point in time where they are today, and there's a lot of stuff that that doesn't get factored into comparisons. And so what I mean by that is the city of Osseo has consistently been spending money to do improvements, to maintain your infrastructure, and made some fairly high investment to make sure that you are in a good place and that your infrastructure is all in a good place. With that, the next slide, we're going to compare to other communities that maybe have not been doing that annual upkeep of infrastructure, or may have, where we look at Maple Grove, for example, know that they are going to have some expensive capital costs in future years. And so while you are on a little higher end of this, on the flip side, recognize that this chart, without taking all those other factors in consideration, is comparing you to people that maybe haven't done significant investment in quite some time.
Are we supposed to be the blue line?
The blue line is the average. And so what might actually be a little easier on this is on the back page of the memo. If you want to look at the same chart only in dollars versus graphically.
Just looking to see where we're at in this comparison.
Yep. So you in this group, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are about 6 down. The average complete utility bill, water, sewer, and storm for this list of comparable cities is $145.22 a quarter for the average bill. Where Osseo fits with your average bill for a single-family user is I'm going to round up the 4 cents, $169 a quarter. You will see along in this comparison, we did try to include some communities that are whole or purchase their water from other people so they don't have their own water source. Arden Hills, New Hope, Roseville, and Little Canada all are in a similar situation where they purchase from another entity. Several of them, I don't know if all of them do, several of them purchase from St. Paul.
just let all your other guys know, I'm not really asking that many questions because I've already had about 6 hours of this coming into here today, so.
So I guess I'll get to my last slide here. You know, really, it's discussion, feedback, getting the questions answered that you have. You can see that, you know, we are proposing the rates for 25. So if you choose to, you could adopt those, setting them for your second half or the last half of the year. Again, we continue to monitor, but I think the other piece of this, as we've discussed, is really having to look at it again, especially water, in a couple years when we have a little more information and can update it with what is going to happen versus a lot of assumptions.
Questions? Thank you. No further questions. Would someone like to make a motion? Expert in the room, so if you have questions, please ask.
So, if I'm looking at this right, and we look at let's just use a medium user, okay? And so, it's an $11.36 increase per quarter for a medium user, which would then in turn. Again, this is just how my little brain works. So 1136 times 4, that's $45.44 a year. Your water rate is going up roughly about $3.78 a month. Am I getting that accurate? Okay. But it's going to continue to do that. That 1136 a quarter is going to continue to do that for the next 4 years, 5 years, or until we reevaluate the next time, right? Because the other thing is we're going to do this again
2 years.
in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So even though we're looking at numbers that are 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years out, 2 years from now we're going to be right back at this.
Yep.
Yes.
And we either will or will not have more information at that point based on Maple Grove or, you know, all these other things too. So this is not, if we do this now, which it sounds like we should, in 2 years, if all of a sudden we notice that, oh, okay, well maybe the rate was too big of an increase, or maybe it was for whatever reason we can then reevaluate it at that point in time.
Yeah, if our cash reserves are just
Right.
through the roof.
All of a sudden capital projects aren't.
Or you can fund them out and make the decision, you just bond everything and then you
Right.
have cash there and not pay cash like we have been.
Right.
That's, future council can make that decision.
But no, like I said, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and try to make, you know, and again, as we've all sat through many, many conversations, anytime you're doing something that's going to ultimately impact the pocketbook of your constituents, you want to make sure that you've asked all the questions. And I understand the situation that we're in. I understand that what we're doing is we're putting in place a plan for the future that will help protect us in the long run if things do go bad. That's all part of the necessity of this. And the reality of it is in the world we're living in right now, whatever it was, $3.40 increase per month in water is probably necessary at this point in time. So that's all. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding everything correctly.
And you know, we're really talking about needing to do this when we have more information from Maple Grove, but this is a decision that different communities set rates a little differently. Some do it for multi-years, but we would recommend, now with us being in the middle of the year, it's a little off, but setting rates, annually, not saying we're going to set our rate at this for the next 5 years, and really looking at that at least on an annual basis to address the exact thing that you outlined.
Yeah, because I mean, the art is threading the needle of how much do you really need to have on hand, and if not, and these are assumptions that all these things are going to get done in the future, and they could get pushed a year. I mean, there's a lot you can do with the downstream with some of these numbers to lessen the burden.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the fact that we've been doing a good job of this for the last 15 years or whatever, there have been some projects that have been able to be done that we haven't had to bond for. We haven't had to go back to people. We haven't. We've protected our residents over the last 15 years by doing a good job of this, and now we're looking to continue to do that moving forward to make sure that we're not constantly having to go back in to dig into their pocketbooks and grab more and more and more and more.
Yeah, because it's a fundamental shift from previous was, before we were around was don't save, just bond, because you always have to pay for it. But if you have to move up rates or taxes to save for it, people don't like it. But once you have a bond on the books, you got to pay for it. And it's like, that's just not the way you run things.
And that's one of the things that down the road affords us an opportunity to really relook at it is because we are carrying bond debt in all these funds. So once that bond is paid off, we no longer have that component of it, So bond is like a credit card. That credit card payment, you can restructure everything based on the not as high a need to do that. But I mean, people want water in their house. I mean, that's the only nice part about this is that, if you want to conserve water, you can enact that and keep your bills low. That's totally okay. I mean, that's one of the things that it kind of is in like this. And, if you're watering your lawn every single day, well, then you should really look at or hope that you have a irrigation meter installed so that you're not pulling from there and having to pay on that. That's where the first quarter sewer averaging comes from, right? But there's just so many different pieces of this puzzle. I mean, all we can do is just try with the use of people way smarter than me and with how to use an Excel spreadsheet, try to thread the needle the best we can. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. The thing about this is that you never know. I mean, it's always you're looking backwards. There's no other way to do it other than that.
Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like we did some really big projects. Was some lift stations that got done, part of the infrastructure, which is obviously very important. So it's kind of like time to pay the bill. We got to get that capital fund back to where it needs to be, because what we don't want to do is end up having a water main break and not have the money and then have to go to market and get a bond. And
Yeah, and that was, especially the sewer sanitary was not getting that money that was promised to us from the state. So it's like, well, we got to pay the bill.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that there's a time where it makes sense to bond and a time that it doesn't, and we don't want to bond everything because now, okay, where's our credit going with that? We don't, and what if some other emergency comes up that we do need to bond for? So, I mean, it's just one of those. It's a hard decision. Unfortunate.
Yeah, that was part of these reserves too. Is just
Right.
a catastrophic event. How much is it? It's at 300-400 that it is, and obviously Public Works was involved in that to try to get a ballpark number, layer that in there, layer in our bond payments.
Yep, and your emergency fund is not ever going to need to be less. That's just not how economics works. It's always going to be more. So better to get it set right now when we have a chance than to gamble and then hope that nothing happens, and then all of a sudden now we're caught behind the 8 ball. And at 375, I mean, yeah, that can be a thing for people, but speaking as a pool owner, it is kind of what comes with the territory, right? You're going to own a home, you're going to pay utilities. Utilities are going to, they're going to go up, but we're doing our best to keep them manageable. and this seems like this, especially when we can re-examine it in a couple years. One thing that I do like about not having annual, and if it's looked at a little more often, is we can keep a little bit better a pulse and determine, oh, okay, now we're doing pretty good and nothing's happened, and maybe we can adjust a little bit, threading the needle. It gives you more opportunities to do that versus you do this on an annual basis and all of a sudden it's like, wow, we had a whole 12 months and boy, did we miss that one. So that's why I like the idea of having these more frequent examinations. But yeah, I mean, it's.
On the water side of things, that's the other part. That's the one that's going to be, that's one that has the most fluctuation because it's environmentally dependent. If it's really, 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 really dry outside, we get more revenue because people are using more water. If it's really, really wet, it goes down. So trying to average that the best that you can.
And this year's a great example. I mean, this has been a very, very wet year so far. Conversely, this also includes then, if I'm right, when it snows versus when it doesn't snow. Because when it doesn't snow, you're not using sewer, or we're not getting charged as much, right? Or
So the sewer and winter quarter averaging, because sewer is based on water usage and that is set in that first quarter when it wouldn't factor in the fact that you're watering your lawn or using your pool or things like that. So the precipitation doesn't necessarily impact the sewer as much.
Okay.
Basically, what's leaving your house in a pipe
gotcha.
is your sanitary sewer.
Yes.
Now, there's a caveat to that. If it's a really cold winter and there isn't much snow, that's when you see a lot more secondary service lines freezing up. So then people are like, I don't want my water to freeze, but I'm not going to run the pencil stream so that moving water doesn't freeze. So I mean, we ran into that too, way back when. Some of our mains were buried like 3 feet deep, so they froze all the time. And so you have all those different types of factors too. So environment really affects all of this stuff on different levels.
With that, would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the proposed 2025 utility rates.
Okay, I got a motion by Councilmember Cook to approve the proposed 2025 utility rates. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, 10 new business. 10A, approve hire of Nicholas Matthews as full-time officer.
Mayor and council, so we were given the opportunity to hire 2 police officers in 2025. One was supposed to be July 1, and then another one later on in 2025. This would be our July 1 hire, so it's been a little over a month. He'll start on August 4th, so a little bit later. That was just because the process took longer for us to get Mr. Matthews ready. Mr. Matthews has been through an interview process with the HR committee, a background investigation, psychological evaluation, and a physical examination. He's passed through all of those stages and is ready for hire. And so the staff is recommending that we approve the hire of Nicholas Matthews as our full-time police officer.
Any questions? If not, we look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, do you remember, was he the first, second, or third candidate that HR committee?
It's the one we decided on.
Yep. He's the top.
Okay, that's what I thought. The name for some reason was throwing me off. Okay.
Remember Nick?
Yep, I remember. You think I remember?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the hire of Nicholas Matthews as a full-time police officer.
All right, we have Councilmember Harkoff coming in with a motion to approve the hiring of Nicholas Matthews. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cook. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, 10B, approve city council appointments to committees and commissions.
What do you want, Tom?
What do you want to jump on?
Mayor and council, this is always our favorite
is your
committees
agenda.
and appointments for current council members. As what's listed here is the council appointments as of March of 2024. We currently added Councilmember Hartkoff to the list here, so everything's open and ready for to listen to you guys decide who's going to do what. So we're open.
What do you want, Tom?
Well, if it's possible, I've been on the Public Safety Advisory Committee for a number of years now as a resident. I'd like to stay if that's possible. But being the new kid, let me rephrase that, being the new person on the council, I'm pretty much open to what you people recommend.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And in order to make that happen, I'm happy to relinquish my duties on public safety as much of an advocate as I hope to be. I have other ways of being an advocate for our awesome public safety group. So if that helps, happy to drop that one.
You want to be in arts and communications?
Sure. Because I'd be glad to give that one up too.
No, too late. You didn't ask the question. You're the artsy guy. I mean, just look at you.
U.S. Army.
Yes.
So I'm happy to give you my position on that one.
I don't know.
The website's up, so pretty much I'm done.
I don't mean to speak for the mayor on this one, but if you wanted to be on Fire Relief Association, I'm sure he would be willing to give up his spot on that. We don't meet very often. You're given your history with public service, that might not be a logical
Yeah.
one for you to slide
I'm
into.
willing.
So,
Okay.
and you get to hang out with me more. So,
Is there anything else that tickles your fancy?
Not at this time.
Yeah, we can put him on anything we want. You know that, right?
I think that's
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Do we motion for this?
I think it,
Yes, it is a resolution.
It's a resolution.
Let me find my little resolution.
And then do we have to, Mary, just for the record, do we have to read all of them again or just the ones that were changed?
I think you could just make a motion to adopt the resolution with the noted changes on the three committees as discussed.
Yes. Per the discussion, I'm seeing that Fire Relief Association will be Councilmember Harkoff and Councilmember Cook. Arts and Communication will be Councilmember Torres and Councilmember Harkoff. And the Public Safety Advisory will be Councilmember Cook and Councilmember Harkoff. That's what my notes are. Yep.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Schultz to approve the council appointments as read. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Attorney Teachin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is resolution number 38. Councilmember Hartkoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Schultz.
Aye.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Councilmember Torres.
Aye.
Mayor Poppy.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. All right, 10C, discuss amendments to zoning code variance and conditional use permits.
I believe this will be mayor and council. I believe this will be Mary's area.
All right, I will take this one. Mayor and Council, so this is an item for discussion, and Assistant City Administrator Vickerman can also chime in, given this has gone to the Planning Commission as well. So we're bringing an ordinance to the city council with some proposed changes to the city's zoning ordinance. And this is relating to variances and conditional use permits. So as required by state law and city code, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this and discussed those proposed amendments on July 21st, 2025. The memo in your packet kind of summarizes the basic changes that we're proposing to the zoning ordinance. Essentially, it's an update to bring the ordinance into compliance with state statute, particularly with respect to variances. The law on that changed some time ago. We have been applying the correct standard to variances under the statute, but the code had not yet been updated to reflect that. So we have inserted some proposed language around the practical difficulties test, which is the current standard, rather than the undue hardship standard, which was the old standard for variances. I also just have inserted some language, some wording for clarification so that the ordinance reads a little bit better. I've also proposed some optional language for the council that would make a variance void if substantial development or construction has not taken place within 1 year of approval of the variance. This is not required, but it's something that I've seen in ordinances in other cities, and I think it sometimes does make some sense if a long period of time has gone by and there's been no movement on the property owner to construct or make the changes based on the approved variance. So that's something for the council to consider. And I've inserted some language around requirements for publication of hearing notices for conditional use permits. So in addition to the optional language regarding the 1 year approval issue, I think the other issues we're looking for input from the council on is public hearing requirements for variances. They are currently required in your city code, but by state statute, variances do not require a public hearing. So that is one thing we'd like to get some input on. The Planning Commission recommended discussed that they felt it was not really necessary to hold a formal public hearing on variances, but that people could still have input at public meetings if they wanted to. So that's something we're looking for council input on. And the Planning Commission, the other thing we wanted some input on was who holds the public hearing for conditional use permits. A hearing is required for conditional use permits, unlike variances, and the Planning Commission recommended that they continue to hold the public hearings on conditional use permits and make a recommendation that would then come to the city council. So the proposed changes, the draft of the ordinance is in your packet, shows the proposed edits. I think it's pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions, but otherwise we're looking for some input on those items that I've identified.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
So I've actually got a question on 153.150 section B, which I know doesn't have a comment, but it does have red lines. There's kind of three parts to this question. So
I'm sorry, which section?
So on page 1 and
Packet page
section B,
87.
Or is it on
second paragraph of the ordinance.
No, the
Got
red
it.
lines he's talking about, I think, are on 87.
I have it.
Yeah, so the question,
You're on 153.150B?
yep, 153.150.
Practical difficulties.
Practical difficulties. Practical
Yeah,
difficulties.
you're on 86 then.
Yeah.
No red line.
So, I got red lines, we're changing undue hardship to practical difficulties and then a number of other changes in here. So the first thing I'd like to understand is the legal standard change. Is that standard higher or lower, or are they the same?
Practical difficulties test is more lenient. So it's basically under the current law, state law, it's easier for property owners to get variances. It's a lower standard.
Okay. And is there any kind of burden shift, or is the burden shift still the same? Who has the burden to show if there are in fact practical difficulties?
The landowner to show that they can meet the requirements under the statute.
Okay, and then does the public purpose test fall into that, and how does rational basis test fit into that? And you may not have an answer right away for that, so that's fine if we have to take that offline.
Well, the state statute and the edits I'm proposing to the ordinance mirror the state statute, so they're essentially the same. Public purpose, I'm not sure where you're going with that, but the statute lays out the specific criteria that need to be met for a variance. And so overall public purpose doesn't really come into play. Property owner needs to meet the criteria as laid out in the statute and under what will presumably be the new ordinance of the city.
So if I'm looking at this from the standpoint of the city, by changing this standard, we're more or less relinquishing some of our ability to control variances?
By changing the standard, you're coming into compliance with state statute. You essentially
Okay.
need to do this.
Okay.
That's not one of the optional changes.
Got it. Okay, so this is a have to then.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that at least helps me understand where we sit with this. That's all.
We have direction on some of the other points that we're seeking clarity on.
So the first optional language I'd like some input on is the making the variance void if a year passes with no.
Yes, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Others?
Any other input?
I'm fine with that.
Anyone else? Bueller?
Absence mean acquiescence?
Yep.
Like,
Moving on.
nobody's
Yeah,
speaking
no,
in his room.
it's pretty straightforward. It's what the planning commission wants, and
That's not Tom. If Tom doesn't say anything, he's in line.
Okay.
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
The second issue is how does the council feel about public hearings for variances? It's a formal public hearing where you have to publish a notice in the paper, give notice to neighboring properties. That's not required by state law. It's in your ordinance now that a public hearing is required, but it's not something you're required to do. So we're looking for, it doesn't mean that you couldn't have public comment if you wanted to. It just means you wouldn't have to go through the formal public hearing process.
And the planning commission still wanted it at the planning commission?
The planning commission, and Alicia can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they recommended or felt that it wasn't necessary to do a formal public hearing.
That's right, yep. The planning commission felt that it was necessary, that they saw the reasoning for conditional use permits, and they advised they'd like to continue going forward doing the public hearing for conditional use permits. However, the optional variance option for public hearings, they did not feel that that was necessary to have a public hearing, a formal public hearing, although they still wanted to hear that the applicant is meeting the burden of the practical difficulties, and that's one of the things that they focused a little bit more on, because it makes it easier for how to determine if an applicant meets all the criteria, trying to interpret the city ordinance as it is now, but then apply the state statute. It made it a little bit convoluted for
Right.
them, determining, whether or not something could be granted a variance.
And Mayor, and sorry, the other aspect of this is that under the state statute, really the only body that is required to even act and consider a variance is the Board of Appeals and Adjustments, which is the city council. So by statute, variances don't have to go to the planning commission at all. So now you can do that. You can keep that as part of your process. And it sounds like the planning commission, I don't know if they weighed in on that aspect of it.
They did. They felt that it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Having more of the process out in the open, having more discussion with, that full body
Transparency.
as well as, there you go, transparency, thank you.
Yep.
They felt that was just another tool to make sure that we're going through these processes and following the steps as they need to be followed, and puts it all out there for public view.
So in my opinion,
I'm ambivalent.
if that's what the planning commission wanted, to not have official public hearings, but yet still have the variances or the,
Yep. And they
Conditional
would
use
still,
permits
they would
go
still
through.
put forward their
Yeah.
recommendations to the council that ultimately has to approve.
yeah, obviously that's, their job, helping out, so I'm fine with those.
Okay.
Any other ones?
I think, and then just the issue of conditional use permits, I think the planning commission was saying they're still good with holding the public hearing with the planning commission
Yep.
and then making the recommendation to the city council. Okay. No, I think just the input and direction, if there's a consensus, I don't really need a motion.
Okay.
I think I got everything. Alicia, did I miss anything?
Nope, that was everything I have here.
Okay. I think I covered everything. So next steps would be we will update the ordinance and we'll be bringing it back to the city council for a first reading at the next council meeting. Thank
Just
you.
one quick question. Which
Sure.
Minnesota statute, what's the statute number? Do you have that? I
For
didn't
which,
see it
for
in
which
the-
part?
For the variance. I didn't see it. in here.
462.357 subdivision 6.
Thank you.
So, okay. All right, moving on. 10D, approved professional service agreement for environmental review for Boardboom Park Community Project Funding Grant. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Assistant City Administrator Rickerman and I had a quick discussion, and if it's all right with council, she could give a background on this agenda item, and then I can provide some more specifics with regards to the proposal that's being presented in front of you this evening.
All right, thank you, Allison. Mayor and council, so this is actually the following three items we have to discuss on the agenda. They're all part of kind of a overarching effort to gather more information on Boardboom Park and Site Park, just future planning. So the first item we have here, the Boardboom Park Environmental Review Assistance. So as we've discussed a number of times now, there's a multi-step process that's needed in order to access the $500,000 community project funding grant through HUD. So that is our federal parks money to expand Boardboom. So the next step in the process, it's been determined that we need to have an environmental review process. It has to be completed before we can draw down any funds from the grant. For example, the first money that we were looking to be able to draw down would be the cost to demolish the two remaining houses on the block. So first thing we needed to do was determine who the governing body was who would oversee the environmental review. And that took quite a bit of roundabout work but actually it turns out that the city of Osseo, we're the governing body. However, we have to,
What are you doing over there?
I don't know.
not silent, man.
A lot of worse stuff could have come up, I guess.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was.
All right, we first needed to determine who the governing body is. That is the city of Osseo. However, we do have to have a qualified third party who completes the environmental review. So WSB has the expertise and qualifications to prepare an environmental document that will comply with the Housing and Urban Development National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Is it NEPA or NEPA? NEPA. Okay. So, and then the other thing over the course of this conversation that I did ask Allison to comment on as well, the cost to complete the environmental review could possibly qualify for brownfield grant funds to be applied. So with the total amount of $47,900 that it would cost to complete the environmental review process, 27,000 of that would come from parks, and 20,000 would come from the brownfield grant, which I asked Allison to explain a little bit further.
All right, tag on it.
There we go.
All right, great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this process, from my understanding, is similar to the last time there were homes taken down in Boorboom Park. So the Brownfields funding, Brownfields is a 501c3 nonprofit in Minnesota, and they provide funding available for cleanup of contaminated sites. So when we started working with Assistant City Administrator Vickerman on this, we reached out to Brownfields to see if there was any funding available, and their current funding source was depleted. However, we anticipate that the next round of funding would come out in August, with those funds distributed in November timeframe. So with that, when we look at that, that's where the, as Assistant City Administrator Vickerman indicated, that would lower the city's cost in this proposal if we can get some brownfields funding for that. But that work, which is essentially task 4 in the proposal, is necessary in order to receive that the grant amount of $500,000. So we've included that as anticipating that the brownfields funding application would be part of WSB's responsibilities, and then included in the schedule. We've presented to council that we would have a little bit of an altered schedule if we do get that brownfields funding, just because of the offset time frame of what work can be done before you apply for that brownfields funding. So that pushes things into February, and we had that discussion that we didn't anticipate that would really adversely affect the city's plans for pursuing this grant funding. And then it would also, it really didn't have much of an impact with regards to the ultimate task here with some of the Boorboom Park development, which is the removal of those 2 homes, a demolition quote package, which would be brought forward to the council at a later date, a proposal to prepare that. We still would have time to get that work done in the springtime in order to meet the ultimate goals of the redevelopment within Boorboom Park. So included in the packet is a detailed letter proposal outlining the tasks associated with the environmental review process. As you can see, and has been mentioned before, the majority of that fee is associated with task 4, which we anticipate would be coming forward with some in the brownfields funding. It's just unfortunate we just didn't get that in time for the current funding. But again, we're looking at that on the immediate horizon here for end of August.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
so looking at the project understanding page, Has this money from HUD already been acquired, or are we hoping for the money?
We are listed recipients of the 2024 CPF funds. So we're named recipients of that fund. However, we have to meet this criteria in order to go and start applying actual dollar amounts to come out and do something like demo the houses. We would have to be able to submit an invoice from a construction company, and then those funds would then be dispersed to pay for the expenses.
Okay, because the reason I ask is there has been a substantial decrease and in some cases clawback of HUD funding at the federal level. So what I want to avoid is, we agree to do something, start spending money, and all of a sudden it's like, well, there's no HUD money. So has
Which
that
is-
been discussed and looked at and thought through?
That's part of the discussion, which is why we don't want to let this stay stagnant for too long. It's sitting there as of right now. We haven't heard from any of our grant partners that, there's any risk to at least our portion of the funds right now, but that doesn't last forever. And we do have an end point of, I believe, 2027 that we have to get to these funds by then. Otherwise, we would be forfeiting those grant funds. But even before that, it would behoove us to try to access those funds as soon as we can.
And we're pretty sure those funds, at least as of
Right
today,
now,
they're
yes.
there.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
no, so that's time of the essence.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, get an environmental report is step one.
And that's really the big roadblock to being able to access these is the environmental review. And there was a time where we thought maybe that the county would be able to help us with this, but as it turns out, they are not listed in this particular CPF grant, so therefore they don't have money to spend on it to help us do it. So that's how it came to this resolution of what we could be doing.
So in other words, the faster we do this, the faster money in hand, right? The simple way to put it.
Maybe.
Well, and the goal is to be able to take down those remaining two houses as early as possible next year, and then start kind of laying the groundwork for what the future expansion is going to look like, and just kind of, we'll see how far $500,000 can take us, but at least in my mind, the goal is to kind of be able to level things and start working on some of that infrastructure, and then making sure, of course, then that we meet the environmental requirements.
That makes sense.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself here. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but because this is the next three items on the agenda are all related to this exact process and project. And I've got it at, it's 93,220 if we don't get that money from whatever it was, the brownfield. 72,545 we do. Does that money come out of that 500,000?
No, it doesn't. That is part of the upfront cost that we cannot charge back to the grant.
Okay, so my question is then was that money budget? I mean, is that money in our budget someplace that we have an extra $93,000 to pay for this stuff up front?
Yep, we do have, in the Parks Dedication Fund, our claim on cash is $210,206. And I believe that is part of the regular general fund transfer. Does that sound correct to you?
Yeah, it's in our park CIP. Now, when you do a CIP, there's costs that you can push off if we had something we needed to maybe build, or right now we do have the cash on hand to do this. But we can also dip if we needed to, or if council wanted us to. we can look at that 10% fund also. And there's money in there to cover those costs because park construction costs can be used in that parks and trails. So that the cash is on hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me this is, I mean, I'll be honest, I think the next three things are kind of no-brainers. I mean, they're the next steps in the process that we have to do, and in order to move forward with all of it, and again, I think it's in a certain time-bound manner, I don't think we can put this off anymore. I think we have to move forward with this stuff, and these are just the next steps of the process, so. I would be happy to make a motion to approve the professional service agreement for the environmental review for Bourbon Park Community Project Funding Grant.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Cook to approve the professional service agreement for the environmental review. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, E, approve professional service agreement for Bourbon Park Master Plan update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar with the previous item, I'd like to defer to Assistant City Administrator Vickerman for the background information for the council.
Excellent, thank you, Allison. So what we've learned throughout this process is that having a detailed plan in place when you go to ask for these funds is a really important piece of the puzzle. So that's what we are moving ahead with this. As we get going on this project, the vision has changed over the years of what exactly people want to see at the park. For example, there was a water feature that's still shown on the drawings from 2017 that it seems like when you talk about it to Parks and Rec, there's not a lot of interest in pursuing a water feature like that. Specifically not a fountain that's costs a lot of money and might not really contribute a lot, in their opinion, to the overall use of the park. And then just in some of our ongoing conversations, we've talked about do we move part of our facilities over there, or would a facility fit on that half of the lot? And so these are all just some of the deeper in research that we need to be able to answer those questions. So we're bringing this to WSB as a way to answer some of those questions. What can we do? What's going to fit there? And make sure that we have a plan in place before we go to use the funds. Before we ask for money, we have to know exactly what we want to do. And the plan from 2017 is just no longer, really the consensus isn't that that's exactly what we want. So new drawings from WSB, they've quoted us, it's the $12,740.
Mr. Mayor? Would this be a situation, because I know there has been a lot of variations as far as what that's going to, would this be a situation where we would kind of have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C? Or are we going to be presented with a plan and then, like, are we gonna have a plan in place that, yes, we are gonna build some facilities over there, potentially, I know there's been talk of potential community center space and incorporate the stage and all that, the module situation that you kind of talked about. Are we gonna have something that we can look at with that and kind of like what that would cost, what that would look like, what that, this other thing, and then an alternate plan if ultimately it's decided that that's not the direction that we want to go. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, are we just gonna be given one diagram that says, oh, this is what we're, and if we are gonna just be given one, who's making the decisions on what's included over there and what's not, and what's that? Well, I mean, I would think we are, but like, when is that happening, and how does that, So I'll defer.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, those are great questions. I appreciate that. So the proposal is to provide two concepts to the council for consideration. And that's based on input with virtual meetings with staff, and then also looking at a preliminary master plan review meeting with the Parks and Rec Committee. So trying to gather in all that information as far as what are the goals here, what's changed since 2017, and then bring back two concepts. And then based on the feedback and direction of the council, at that point, with a preferred concept, then go back and develop a cost analysis and present that to council so that they can see what that preferred concept would cost.
I think it'd be nice once we have those two options, even if we have a public time for people to come in and,
Like a town hall kind
Yeah.
of, yep.
and just have some additional feedback.
That could, correct me if I'm wrong, but that could potentially be done through the Parks and Rec Committee.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would be a good kind of natural first step to bring it back to them,
Yep.
let them go back through it, and then bring it back to council again.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the professional services agreement for Boardboom Park Master Plan update.
I got a motion by Councilmember Torres to approve the professional service for the Boom Park Master Plan update. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Harkoff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
Another one.
Last
for
one.
the sites.
Well, we wanted to get them three separate ones so that the council could have a good discussion on this, which you have so far. So third and final proposal in front of the council this evening is with regards to site park court improvements. And again, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant City Administrator Vickerman for some background information, and then I can just go over what the proposal includes.
Thank you. Yep, so lastly, we're asking the council to consider approving an engineering proposal for plans for Site Park. Parks and Rec Committee has expressed interest in repairing the courts at Site Park, so the basketball, tennis, and/or possibly pickleball courts at Site Park. I believe you've all seen some images. They're in disrepair. There's gaps, definitely trip hazards. So again, as the process of going for grants moving forward, the best thing we can do is have a plan in place so we know what we're asking to be done and then how much we are looking for in funds, or conversely, just how much maybe we would need to bond for. The best thing we can do is come at these with a plan in hand. It's also recently come to my attention that there's a Hennepin County Youth Activities Grant, which again is focused right here on Hennepin County. If we had some good plans laid out, ready to go for exactly what our wants are at Site Park, I feel, and our grant writers also feel, that would be a better position for us to start applying for that grant if we already had plans in place of what we would like to do and approximately how much that would cost. And so having even the materials to submit for that grant application, that's where having WSB do this work comes into play.
Yeah, because that's how we got lights on at the baseball field.
Right.
It was one of those Twins Community Fund
Yep.
for getting lights at the high school.
Mr. Mayor, so I'm just curious what the difference between the cost of proposals with this one for Sipes being about 2.5 times the one we just did for Boom. I'm just curious as to why, because it seems like Boom is a much more extensive project. Sipes, I mean, we just played a really awesome game at Sipes of kickball. And while there are things that need to be done there, it's a pretty cool park. I mean, having never actually done something on that park, I was pretty happy with this. Is a cool park.
That ball field is great. And yeah, you're right. That's part of the Twins grant.
Right, so I'm just trying to understand, seeking to understand.
Good question. Mr. Mayor, if we look at the fee breakdown within the proposal, we've included final design bid documents and project bidding in the fee, which comes to approximately $20,000. So and that's not part of the proposal for Boom. And so when you look at it, we're actually about $12,000 for, looking at the the site layout, getting some topographic survey, getting that preliminary information before going ahead and getting final design and bid documents. So that's the delta between the bore boom proposal and the site park proposal.
Basically, the two is plans, concepts to bidding.
So nuts to bolts.
Bidding
Bidding
isn't
and-
required for the first
yeah,
For
one,
the stuff.
right?
Yeah,
Got
there are
it.
no construction kind of bid documents
Okay.
in the first one.
That's our great plans and specs. You know, getting down into that, how thick do we want this, and, you know, I
Right.
mean, that's.
Get the
that's-
cool little
One,
things and stuff.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Is there, and I think I understand, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a reason for not including, like, revamping the playground equipment in Sipes Park as a part of all of this, and as one holistic project, as opposed to doing resurfacing courts as one project and then doing playground equipment as its own separate entity? Because that could
Yes.
use a little upgrade over there.
It definitely can, and that is one of our goals as well. But also, we're trying to keep it, how much can we really spend right now
Yeah.
on some of this planning? And designing a playground is
Really
a really big
expensive.
feat. And that's something that, again, we'll have to pursue grant funds for. We'll have to look at all sorts of different funding mechanisms over time for that. But
Have to get a grant to get a grant.
Right. Well, which again, which brings me back to what you said earlier.
Close to about 25 years.
Well, what brings me back to what you said earlier about it's a lot easier to pursue these grants if we have a good plan in place. My question is it more economical for us to have that be a part of this plan now, so we don't then have to go back later and pay again to have another rendering done? You see what I'm saying?
yeah, absolutely.
And so that's the only thing I was thinking is that if we can't really pursue grants without a detailed plan in place, we've got a plan happening, why would we not necessarily include that into, it wouldn't necessarily be part of it that we would be pursuing right away, you know, like as far as like the project bids and things like that. And maybe that's the problem is that you can't do it that way because you're gonna go. I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but that's why I was just curious as to why we weren't looking at it at this aspect of things more holistically, and then a la carte it as we go to move forward to actually do it. You know what I mean? Saying, okay, well we've got the plan in place for the playground. It says it's going to be this much money. We don't have this much money right now, so let's concentrate and focus on the resurfacing of the courts. But now we have that plan, so if we do want to pursue grant money, we've got
Yeah.
it in place. So just something that I.
So you can phase later on instead of phasing from the beginning, basically, right?
And it seems like there'd be an economy to scale within the project to do that at the same time, right?
Correct. I mean, to go and do independent plan sets for, for court improvements versus playground improvements, you do have an economy of scale with doing it all at one time.
So would it be preferable, would you like this item to get tabled and brought back with possibly adding in the playground equipment as well?
I think it'd be good to know what the cost would be so we can compare to this one. If it's a quick hit and we're not pushing it way down the road. And to get a general idea, kind of like this, just like what's the overarching plan? Maybe that requires a Park and Recs meeting where we can discuss all that, come up with a decision about Sipes Park holistically, then bring that back to WSB and say, okay, so how much would this cost for planning? But get that input from Parks and Rec and also, if necessary, public opinion for people that use the parks.
And just for the sake of, what we're doing here as a staff, this is a good one to spend a little bit more time on as we're learning more about this Hennepin County grant too. Because there's all sorts of iterations that you can apply for, and we've only just heard about that one towards the end of last week. So I haven't been able to put a lot of time in with our grant writers to know kind of the different combinations of things we could be looking for there. So I think this is a good one to kind of take back a little bit and work on some more.
So with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion that we table item 10F in tonight's agenda for a future meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I think the motion should include a date for reconsideration of that agenda item.
Yep. Give a date.
When is the next Park and Rec? I don't think we have
We,
one.
we don't have one on the books, I don't think, right now, but
Early
Usually quarterly,
August.
isn't it?
It's a little bit more than quarterly. I think it's 6 times a year.
It's been a while since we've had one, though.
It has. It's been since June, so I know that we are looking at one in October, or I'm sorry, August, and then October.
So
And the exact date here.
perhaps, let me look at the calendar.
looking at either the 11th or the 25th would be one of
I
our.
think 25th. So I'm going to propose.
August 5th.
Yep.
There we go. August 5th.
August 5th, there's a Parks and Rec meeting?
Yep. August 5th at 6 PM, Park and Rec. August 11th is our next council meeting. And then you can go to August 25th is the next council meeting.
So that's the same night as Night to Unite.
We have a Parks and Rec meeting on 19th night?
That's what's scheduled right now. That's up to the
So we can
Park
work
and
with
Rec.
And
Park
we
and Rec's
can,
on Tuesdays?
we can talk to, I can reach out to the chair of that committee too, to see if there's maybe a desire to move that date.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a pretty big.
Well, and just even on Tuesdays is all of our
Yeah.
music in the park stuff
Yeah.
through the summer, so
And that's how this one date fell, I think, earlier on in the year when we were planning out our schedule. We knew that there was going to be one day that made that Tuesday meeting a little wonky, but it seemed to work out better with the rest of the calendar. But I can absolutely reach out and see if maybe we can move that
So
one.
I'm going to amend my motion to include the date of August 25th to reconvene on this particular
Mr. Mayor?
agenda item.
I want to insert here real quick, just to let you know that I will not support this table. We've been kicking this court resurfacing down the road for 5 years. And, to now throw this other part in, which we know is definitely there, I don't see an actual relevant purpose to pushing everything down the road together. And since a tabled motion is non-debatable, I'm kind of just sticking it in there so I get a chance to say what I'm thinking before. I just think we should just move this down the road, get the courts under control, and I think this is everything you guys want to accomplish can still be accomplished regarding the park stuff. So,
it doesn't make any sense to pay $32,000 and then potentially down the line have to come back and pay another however many. Let's just say it's $15 additional thousand to add the, if it's by itself, but if it's part of this bigger plan.
it's not going to change anything. You're not going to be able to get them to do more stuff with the hours are allocated for this part of the project. It doesn't
I
make any
disagree.
difference.
I guess I disagree with
I don't know
your
how you
logic.
could. How
Well, I
you're
can,
gonna-
because I have the opportunity and the right
I
to be
get
able to
that.
tell you I don't agree with what you're saying. So
I
I'm just telling you.
appreciate that. I'm just saying the numbers in this case here, these hourly rates are just going to change with more work. So
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like to ask, is there a difference in cost? Like if we vote to do this now, the 32 grand, I mean, not that I don't believe you, but we have the person here who's going to charge us. So why not ask?
So the difference with the play container is, so my understanding of landscape architecture, they look at, when it comes to playgrounds, they call it the container. So essentially the perimeter of what that playground equipment requires. And so how that factors in is if you're looking to make those changes, the proposal right now is play container is set. If play container is included in the plan set, then there's an opportunity for some more iterations on, well, what if we go with a bigger play container, smaller play container, move it over here. So there is some moving of the layout of the amenity, if you will. So potential for some more, what that would cost. guessing maybe a couple days' work. I'm not certain how long. it
So
would
I
take.
apologize.
Does that?
And if I didn't ask the question right
Okay.
away, I guess I'm asking in a much simpler way. To the extent that if we vote on this now and we do this piecemeal, is that more expensive than if we table it and then do it all together?
Oh, if I understand correctly, so if you move forward with this tonight, and then the planning commission says, well, wait a second, we do want to look at a play container, there's an opportunity to amend the contract to add that. Is that the question, Councilmember
I'm
Torres?
just trying to figure out, because I will rescind my motion if we need to get something done, because there's some
Okay.
history behind that I wasn't necessarily aware of. But to Councilmember Cook's point is, why would we spend $32,000 now and then 15 grand later
Understood.
if we kick it down the road 4 weeks and we can save 5 grand or 10 grand? That's kind of the yes or no question. Do we save money by putting all this work together into one thing versus doing it piecemeal? Different
if you're
parts of this project. It's not that complicated.
I-
We spend $32,000 now, respectfully, but my frustration is this is not a hard question. We will vote to spend $32,000 now. WSB is going to do a body of work. Later on, we already know that we want to do some other things in that park. That's going to cost X.
Correct.
So we got 32,000 X. If we do it, if we kick it down the road so that we know exactly what X is that more expensive? Is there, we had said that there was an economy of scale by doing a larger plan. To me, economy of scale means cheaper. It sounds like, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is it cheaper or not cheaper?
Yes, if you're adding the playground while they're doing the work for the current layout,
From a planning perspective.
planning perspective.
So that would be cheaper then.
I guess I'm just looking at their hourly rates that they're quoting out for all the different people and understanding that I don't understand how it's going to be cheaper when the numbers are just right here. This person here is going to do 2 hours here and they're going to be doing all this other, on the economy of scale, to your point regarding when construction happens, 100%. I get that, but not on the planning. I don't see it, not understanding what I'm seeing here in your allocation of resources to substantiate the bill. We ask people to do more money, these numbers are going to tick up whether we do it now or later.
Right,
So I think
and
there's
that's,
an initiation.
and I completely agree, actually, with Councilmember Schultz. That's the point. If it's, and I think that's the point he's making, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, if there's no difference, it's gonna cost the same now versus if we wait and it's still gonna cost the same, then why would we kick it down the road? The only purpose of kicking it down the road was to find out exactly what it is that we wanna do for the plan.
Mr. Mayor? My thought is, okay, and the reason why I'm looking at this is, okay, so if we're gonna do a topographic survey, that's part of what we're being.
Yes.
right? That topographic survey is gonna look different if we're including the playground.
Correct.
So now we're gonna have to pay for another topographic survey to include the playground, and it's a whole nother, and we're gonna have to do another geotechnical exploration, and we're gonna have to do another, and so that's where, to me, it's like, I gotta believe that if you include it all in one project, it is gonna be cheaper than doing this now, and then down the line, having to do all of this over again to assess the playground, and this gets us all the information in what I believe would be a timely manner to get potentially exploring some of these grants. I mean, I'm looking at the timeline on here as far as, what you're gonna do and how this is gonna work, and when courts are gonna be resurfaced. If we vote on this on August, or on July 27th versus August 11th or August 25th, is the timeline gonna change that drastically on getting those courts resurfaced? I don't think so. I guess I could be wrong, but I don't see that as being a huge. Then we get all of this done in one crack. We've got all the information we now need to do to be able to pursue Hennepin County grants and do the different things. Just, to me, if we're gonna do it, as opposed to just, let's do it because it's been kicked down the road enough, just, we gotta get it done, let's do it right. And to me, doing it right would be looking at the project as a whole and not in pieces. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
for Ellison, if they're talking about not doing the playground till down the road some years because we can't afford to do it all now. So if you did the whole thing now, is it still going to be viable for the playground plan in 2 or 3 years or however down the road they decide they have the money to do it?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harkoff, if you have a master plan with the playground replacement and then opt not to replace the playground at this time, you can certainly come in and prepare a separate quote package. That's what you're asking for, is what's changed? So you would have some costs as far as preparing a separate quote package. But as far as the actual plan itself, I can't imagine that there would be anything that would significantly change within the park area as far as grades or the geotechnical information, that you would have to go and do that work again. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think one of the concerns, in the word that wasn't used yet, is rework. What we're trying to avoid here is rework, right? So we don't want to spend $1,000 for something just to spend $1,000 for something to do exactly the same thing 6 months from now, year from now, whenever. So, that's what I'm trying to get my head around is there rework or no rework if there, and to the point of timing, does 4 weeks make a difference? Because we do need to act on things in a timely manner. So how does that play out?
So with respect to rework, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here as far as the additional information and getting topographic information, depending on the timing of approval. If the survey crew's already been out there, then they have their drive time to get back out there, and so that's a nominal amount. Timing of the preparation of plans and specifications. I'm not intimately familiar with the bidding environment for this, but I would venture to guess that a month is not going to make a significant impact with regards to the bidding environment for a project like this. But again, I don't have extensive experience with that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking at the schedule. It says, it says park improvements are installed spring of 2026. And I guess here's my question: by us maybe taking this and waiting a month, gathering more information, doing what we've kind of talked about, are we still in line to do park improvements come spring of 2026?
Yes.
So it really wouldn't change. It wouldn't speed up anything or slow anything down. It doesn't really impact the timing of when the improvements are actually going to be made. And yet we'll maybe have some more information. And in respect to Councilman Harkoff's comment, you're right, but I think if we're hearing about this Hennepin County grant and we can start pursuing that now, we might be able to put that park in and redo that equipment sooner than what we thought, because we might have access to money we didn't know we were going to have. But we can't pursue that money without a good detailed plan. And so I would rather have us take the time and get a good detailed plan on the entire park and what we want to do to it, and so we can pursue these grants and we can do these different things. It's not going to change when the courts are going to be resurfaced. It's not going to have any impact on that. And we have all the information that we need to pursue other things and do this. That's what I would like to see us do. I'm only one person, so.
Okay, so do we technically have a motion on the table, or no motion?
There was a motion, but there was no second, so.
There's no second.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion to table 10F until the August 25th council meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Cook to table this issue until the August 25th. That's a council meeting.
Council meeting.
Council meeting,
Right?
okay. Is there a second?
I'm going to second that.
Okay, second by Councilmember Torres. All right, any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Hey.
Motion passes 4-1. All right. 10G, approve accounts payable.
Motion to approve the bills.
I got a motion by Councilmember Schultz to approve tonight's accounts payables. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Administrator report.
Mayor, council, just want to say that the kickball game was a success, it sounded like. I was injured, so I had to, no, just kidding. You know, I think we escaped with no injuries. Looked like we had a young fellow on the mound who did a great job for the police and city people. So I think there's been some discussion already about expanding. I'm hoping we can do that next year. Sounds like I've already been contacted by the Legion that they want to be a part of it now next year. And so there's just, I think this will be something that we can continue to do. It was a great time had by all. I'd also like to say that Wednesday will be Erin Haugen, our new front person, will be starting. She'll be starting on Wednesday, right? Wednesday morning. And then congratulations to her, and then congratulations to Officer Matthews. Now he'll be starting on August 4th. And I would like a shout out to our trainers within our police department because they put together, totally revamped our whole field training program. And so they were able to install it, and they've done a total revamp of it to make it up to date. We're going to have a 10-day academy process where we get everything done with Nick. He'll be kind of the guinea pig for this. And they actually revamped all 4 phases of our FTO program. That's Officer Ryan Swanson, Officer Maddie Zitzelsberger, Officer Eddie, and Brett Letourneau. So I'd just like to put my thank you out to them. They put a lot of hard work into it, put it together, and I think this is going to be a great addition to our department and make us a more professional organization. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Administrator Vickerman.
No report. Covered everything. Thank you.
Council and attorney's report. Attorney, did you?
My only report is sometime in the pretty near future, you'll be seeing some updates probably to your personnel policy. There were a handful of changes in the 2025 legislative session. Compared to previous years, there wasn't much, so that's a good thing. But there are a handful of updates that we'll be bringing to the council with your personnel policy. And then, of course, the Minnesota paid leave law will be going into effect January 1st, 2026. So that will be a major undertaking that we'll be working on with the city.
All right. Council reports. Councilmember Harkoff.
No report.
Councilmember Torres.
Just want to echo City Administrator Michelson's comments about the kickball. It was really fun, really awesome, great community event. Hope to see much more of that. And yes, our team particularly had a very, very good pitcher. So, yes.
Yes, we did.
That's it.
Member Cook.
Just wanted to give a thank you to Osseo firefighter John Thibodeau, who resigned today, or put in his resignation, and I think 17 years of service on the Osseo Fire Department. So thank him for that. Other than that, no report.
Councilmember Schultz.
No report.
All right. Just some general announcements. Don't forget about National Night Out is on Tuesday, August 5th. It'll be here at the city campus. And then also we are doing along with the 150th year celebration this year, they're having a coloring contest. So it's going on from now until have to be in by Friday, August 13th. Bring your completed coloring sheet to the Osseo City Hall administrative offices, and then they'll be announcing First, second, and third place winners in each of the categories, 4 and under, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, and then 11 to 13. So, folks, come
Mr.
get
Mayor,
one
where
of
do
the
they get
sheets.
the sheets from?
City Hall.
Right at the front desk.
And they're also going to be at night to night, so
At
have the
night to
kids
night?
grab them at night to night, absolutely.
And would this even be something we could post on the website that people can download and print themselves?
We might be able to do that, we can look into that, absolutely.
To be an option if people can't get up to City Hall, so. All right, with that, adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Cook. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Torres, non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned at 8:50.